My guest I mentioned Mr. Segbefia, and we're talking about the petition that the flag bearer of the NDC has sent to the Supreme Court challenging the declaration by the Electoral Commission FR results or one more announced here. Proud to his joining me, and now I was reading to you the reliefs that the NDC is seeking in terms of one more petition on the Supreme Court. Now the final analysis in this about we are seeing the expecting said the Supreme Court will now the declaration made by the EC chairperson. There are reasons in the so call the Supreme Court. I won't be so at the a case. But prior to the discussion, I remember the flag bearer of the NDC held I think it's a press conference, an engagement. He highlighted a couple of concerns. I think the theme of that engagement was standing on principle on the 30th of December. Also highlighting some of these concerns. I know one more Kase will be say, what is it that I want as the flag bearer of the NDC? He talks about removal of doubt in terms of petition on the Supreme Court. Institutions of states must be held accountable for one more a year. Justice for the 7 who are dead. He also raised concerns about presence of the military at various collation centers, and Madam Jean Mensah not acting according to the law. When you know, somehow can was proud to the filing of the petition at the Supreme Court. And I probably Mr. Segbefia or Hanum here. Me no ebedi sound come out, but for our listeners, Nichino and said that enko years and would manage with the English, and I'll try my possible best to summarize the conversation as we proceed with our conversation. Mr. Segbefia, good morning. It's good to have you in the studio.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers and your listeners.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year to you and to everybody out there.
What's the mood in the NDC now?
Oh, we are quite upbeat. We are quite concerned about the way in which our democracy is turning out in terms of various actions that are being taken out by the ruling government. It's almost as if power must be obtained at all costs, regardless of whether it's to the threat of our own democracy. And some of these actions are of concern. But we know the MPP, we know what they are capable of, so we are undeterred. We stand for the rights and the people of our country, Ghana, and we will continue to fight as we have always done to ensure that these rights and the needs of our people are met and that the will of the people is not usurped.
Are your people down-spirited, your supporters, the masses?
Not really. I mean, we actually have to pat ourselves on the back. When you look at all the things that have happened in this election, you have to say that the NDC has done extremely well.
How so?
Well, we have no doubt in our mind that we won 140 seats minimum in terms of the parliamentary ongoing. The issues that are happening in Techiman South, the issues that have happened in Segbefia, and 2 of the cases we have already taken, we have won. And so it is clear that there was a concerted effort in Takwa, Isikadon, and 1 or 2 others, which should have not come to pass, shouldn't have gone down that road. So we are clear in our mind that with both the presidential and the parliamentary, we should have been victorious. Too many games have been played in this election. Let me start from the most simplest example. A lot of people, or a number of people, were arrested, accosted with regard to having ballot papers on them or trying to get ballot boxes into polling stations, and they were accosted and they were destroyed. Not a single one of the sheets had John Mahama's thumb-printed fake, what's it called? Or not ballots. Fake, but ballot papers with his thumbprint. Every single one, every single situation has been thumbprinted for Nana Addo. When you look at even social media, what was going around, all of them were thumbprinted for Nana Addo.
Do you get a sense some of these, thumb-printed ones got into the system? Do you get that sense?
Yes, we believe so.
You believe so?
Yeah, we believe so.
Do you
because you have evidence on the pink sheets that there was overvoting in a number of areas, and padding. Apart from the padding, there was overvoting, and so there is some evidence on the face of the pink sheets of these things happening. You also know that before the election, there was a printing house that had a whole lot of ballot papers that were supposed to not have been printed. And they said, oh, it's just like this. So we had to actually go through a process of burning them. Question to be asked is that, was that the only place, and did we get to burn all of them? Because none of the Inokaikwen North, they were bringing in a whole heap of ballot boxes with thumb printed this, and the people took umbrage. They said, all the ballot boxes are already in, where are these coming from? And there was a scuffle, and all of them were taken and destroyed. Once again, all thumb printed for Nana Addo. So we know that there was a concerted effort to change the will of the people in terms of who they were voting for and how they were going to vote. And the actions since, we are seeing in this country one rule for one people and another rule for others. We've had situations of sitting MPs shooting guns at polling stations. We've had violence in certain areas. People have been shot and killed. We've had MPs going on TV threatening to burn people and threatening to burn this thing. Has anybody been brought to book? Has anybody been arrested? Has anything? No. Everything is, we are investigating. We are investigating. MPs, members of parliament, truly voted, take a walk from Parliament House to the EC to give a petition. They try to stop them. They say it's all right. They push their way through and go and try and give it. Nobody is there to meet them. They are being sent to court. They are being sent to court. What kind of Ghana are we building? Where's our democracy going? All these things, other things that are happening, no one is speaking about them. Nothing is happening. But you can take our senior MPs, not with a group of 300, 400 people, 20 or 30 people, at most 40 people, walk, they go to hand over a petition. And in the security agency's best judgment, I've been a prosecutor. The first thing you do is first you look at the evidence. If you have evidence, fine. But you must also look at the public interest criteria. What I mean, is it in the public interest to pursue a certain course of action or not? And it is a factor you take in when you are dealing with any offenses. What is the public interest at this time to be pursuing this case? Assuming even you had cogent evidence, what are you trying to achieve? And there's because of the games that are being played with regard to how they want to ensure that they have a majority in parliament, in terms of what is happening with the Chiman and what is happening with the cases we have to fight for. And if you know the facts of these cases, you'll marvel. But in terms of all these issues, there's only one thing you see. Restrict as many of our potential MPs from attending parliament on the night of the 6th to ensure that the MPP can say it has a majority so that they can choose a speaker. Why?
Now, the issue about the members of parliament you raised, the police talks about they not having prior notification from the members of parliament and backing on that work. Should they not have known better as legislators?
Let's not try the case. Let's not try the case. I'm not even going to go into it. The question I'm asking is, if you are 2030 going to go and give a petition, the question, is this a demonstration? Do you need prior notice? So there are many questions to be asked. We are going to give a petition. We've shown the whole world what happened in Techiman South. We've done the figures. Everybody knows that NDC won. We are going to give you a petition along other things that happened in the district. We need prior notice. For what? I mean, how many people went to? These are MPs. They are not, they didn't go with create a crowd or say. But
you spoke about the times. You spoke about the times
yes.
we are in.
Yes.
We have had situations where there have been clashes, especially the times at the time
yes.
where there have been clashes, where some persons
yes.
could target these members of parliament at the time they were going to present their petition. And so you don't think that it would have been the more important to notify the police about
when there were enough policemen than the people who were come to give the petition at the scene? At the forecourt or the entrance to have you been to see the kind of, at the time, the type of security that was there? The security is more than the people who are come to give a petition. So if there isn't going to be a counter, there were people there to look after it. Look, it doesn't make sense. It's a show of power, a show of force, and a use and an abuse of our democratic principles. Common sense must prevail. That is what I'm saying.
But
And,
on the issue
and in
of,
any event,
on the issue of common sense,
yes.
you just raised.
Yes.
Now, if members of parliament get to, a barrier
Yes.
where the security agencies say,
yes.
from the orders we have,
Yes.
we have not been notified about your activity,
Yes.
and therefore we can't allow you. Would it not have been prudent then to just simply turn
No,
around?
I disagree with you. These are not people who are not known. You know the people. These are MPs from parliament. The senior hierarchy of it. It's not like me and you. It's not Tom, Dick, and Harry. No. These are the senior hierarchy of parliament. Going to take a document. Nobody's armed, no sticks, no cudgels, nothing. They are going to take a document and give. Common sense rather would say, let them through. That is good policing. Let them through. They come to give a petition. What is the issue with that? We use force and power in a way, and that's why I'm saying that it is discriminatory. Why? People have shot weapons at polling stations. How long did it take you before you even invited them? If there wasn't a hue and cry within the media and others, would the person have been invited to come and answer questions? Why? What is so different about NDC MPs and MPP MPs? Somebody goes on radio and says, I'll ban everybody, I'll ban this, I'll do this, I'll this. Nothing. This same security agents haven't seen anything. And you are talking about people going to give a petition with more security there than ever to go and hand over. Somebody's trying to justify that. It's like the same way you say, oh, there are demonstrations going on and they are burning tires. The people who shot people and are dead, they are still working. Oh.
Would these 20 members of parliament appear before court? Would they go?
It's not my decision to make. They will. They are members of parliament. They will get, if their summons has been properly served, duly served, under the right conditions. It's their choice to make. But the question is, what has happened to the rest? Why is nothing happening to any MPP person who does something wrong? Assuming that you even can say that something has gone on. Why is it that it must be NDC people who must always come and answer? You have a demonstration in Techiman. No water cannon is used. No demonstration. I mean, people are at the ballot, this thing.
Yeah.
No water cannon is used. No rubber bullets are used. People are shot with live rounds. Who's been arrested? Who is being investigated?
Earlier, you're making a point about, I don't know whether it's a theory, but you seem to have the thinking that all this is a ploy to ensure that,
Yes.
Your members of parliament, some of them are not present at the time the election of a speaker happens. Is that what you think it is?
That's what I think it is, yes. That is the view of many people as well. It's to frustrate, to intimidate, and to ensure that we are cowered into submission for the MPP to be able to choose a speaker and have a majority on the day. All these court cases, the issue, hohoi. I don't want to talk much because it's in court today before the Supreme Court. But you ask yourself, look, let me give you a bit of history. Regions are created in Ghana, 6 new regions. NDC has no problem with the creation of regions. It's in our manifesto even 20 this thing.
Yeah.
We go along with it. Of all the regions that were created, you had a situation where Ashanti region, which is the largest region in the country, both in mass and population combined, is not touched. The stronghold of MPP is not touched. Nobody splits it. And the reason for that is that nobody gave a petition, nobody requested it. But they have requests in Volta region. They have requests from Broahafo. And they are able to split it into 3. Northern region, which is our stronghold, split into 3. Volta, split into 2. We have kept quiet. All these regions that were created, not a single one had a constituency that didn't fit completely into a region. Only in Volta region, where Hohoi, you have decided to split it and put half in Oti, the other half in Volta. Why? You knew that confusion would definitely come from that action. You haven't done it anywhere else. You've done it only in Volta region and in Hohoi. You say you create a new region, a new constituency. Okay, create it and let the people vote, get a new parliamentarian, go through the process. Whether, and they are going to debate that issue today, but long and short of it is, no new constituency is created. These people, because of the law, the old Hohoi exists because there's an MP current. So at the time we are going to vote, the demarcation for Hohoi is still the old Hohoi, which includes the Sao people. And you are going to do a voting. Why can they not vote? Somebody takes a decision a day before, on the eve, after telling them they can vote in their mother constituency, and says on the eve, no, you can't vote. Breaching their fundamental human rights to vote. And we are having a debate which must go to the Supreme Court on this. Really? Why? For me, it's clear as daylight. But democracy, go to court. We've gone to court. We'll put an injunction.
Let's come to the substantive issues before our time runs out, and we've not touched on the issues at all in the first place. Now, standing on principle,
yes,
give us some bit of, understanding of, that speech that, the former president read, the flag bearer of the NDC, where he talks about the reason why he's going to court and what he wants. He says that, I want the removal of doubt. He says that institutions must be held accountable. There must be justice for the 7 dead, presence of the military at the coalition centers. All these are issues he catalogs in, that statement. What informed that before you submitted a petition?
Well, I don't think that anybody who is listening to what is, or been a party of what is going on can say, do you believe there's clarity in what is in our election process? There's no clarity. You have a result that has been given, announced by the chair of the Electoral Commission, which does not add up. You have apparent amendments to those statements, which also do not add up. So there is absolutely no clarity as to what has happened in our election and this thing. There are permutations of the lack of clarity which do not allow, which give the impression that nobody crossed the 50% mark. So if that is the case, why should anybody who knows that this is not the case accept it? We should go to court. We've gone. We'll put the figures, that anybody who's read our petition, we'll put the figures before the court. We'll show them that there has been vote padding. We'll show them about some of the anomalies with the pink sheets. But the crux of it is that if you have all these issues and the figures themselves don't add up, getting them to add up subsequently become a problem. And therefore, the Electoral Commission itself was making decisions wrongly because they didn't have all the information they required.
Now, reading through the petition, I couldn't help but get the sense that the entire, activity is premised on the pronouncement made by the EC chair at the time of declaring His Excellency the President-elect. That bit of data, that bit of information that she gave out and declared that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is the President-elect. And then the numbers she used, that is what the entire petition is based on. Am I correct?
It's just not that. Apart from the erroneous declaration that was made, there was an erroneous attempt to amend it. That was also flawed. So basically, which figures are you relying on? Which ones? To call a winner. Your amendment, we say, doesn't even stand because of the way and manner in which it was done and because of its erroneous nature. It didn't even address the issues of the first one. So the first declaration is what stands. It's flawed. So what are we relying on to? And this is a constitutional plus statutory requirement. There's a set process and procedure. There's, on our basis, been a complete breach. What is the remedy? The remedies are what we've asked for. The court will decide. You see, we were very mindful of the fact it took us almost 10 months to deal with the petition in 2012. The court has now put 42 days as the trial period for this case, which means you don't have the luxury the MPP had in 2012, in this case, you have to be very strategic and very tactical in the kind of case you put forward, which will get you results that you require. So it's a question of strategy. Simplify the issue as best as possible for the Supreme Court to deal with. Fortunately, the referee has caused so much of a blunder that you cannot even rely on figures that she has put forward. And therefore, the best thing to do, when you look at the whole way in which padding is clear, the system that was used this time was questionable, the more you put human factors into a collation system, the worse it gets, because the system can look the best on paper. Normally, it's the human factor that creates the problem. So you had a system that didn't have a regional collation issue. You have now introduced it in a way, a manner where some of the figures don't tally. The way in which you used to relate to the agents as the returning officer in the strong room, constituency by constituency, that was lost. You are now trying to deal with them on a regional basis. If the total doesn't add up, you now have to try and do a complete analysis of which constituency in the region is creating the problem. And then when you find that constituency, you must now go down to the check on the polling station. Whereas before, when you're doing it by constituency, when it comes, it's easy to find out whether there are problems. And when everybody signs, it was given. At the time that it was, the declaration was made, I believe there were, I think, 4 regions that had not even been signed off by our people in the strong room. This is a complete departure from what used to pertain in the past, and that has brought us here. So no matter how disgruntled you were about some of the issues that may have happened in the past, because of the process and procedure which you had taken part in, it was very difficult to challenge it. We haven't taken part in some of the issues that have occurred. So there's a lack of transparency. It's a mess. That is what we have. We have a mess.
So you're asking the question that, what necessarily is the EC working with in terms of its declaration of, the presidential results? The gazetted, results, does that not form a basis for the EC to declare someone a winner?
That would be a matter for court. So I'm not going to go into it. We've put forward our figures. We've queried some of the figures that have been put out by the EC itself in terms of collation. When we get to court, all will be revealed.
All right. Now, like you said, this is strategic. But I also see that you are going on a very technical angle in terms of the stipulations of the Constitution itself, where you quote, Article 63.3. And the point you are trying to make is that if the EC made a declaration on video and there is audio as well, that so and so person is the winner by this margin, and then turns out that it comes to make a correction, then it makes the declaration erroneous. But
no, it's not. It's not. You see, don't jump the two things. The first question, was the declaration erroneous or not? The EC chair has to answer this. Whether, because you see, we are also saying that the correction wasn't done by the EC chair. It was done by the EC on their website, but it's not done by the EC chair. Is the returning officer. At what point has she made any statement, signed any document herself personally that this is a mistake and it is wrong?
But does that not translate into the gazetted?
The gazetted results have come after, at the end, subsequently. There have been things that have happened in subsequently, which don't add to the gazette. Having said that, the gazette is the public notification of certain things. What did she gazette? She gazetted the declaration that she made on the 9th. Read the gazetting. It is of figures she gave on the 9th. So she's taken us even back in the gazette to the original declaration she made. So where do the amendments come in? Check the gazette. So the gazette refers to her signature and the figures on the 9th. So any of the other figures that even subsequently you are talking about in terms of amendment don't play a part. So if you look at the figures, what she said and what has been gazetted, they don't add up. I mean, look, let me break it down even simpler. When we put in our petition, there were 1 or 2 areas where we had some clerical and administrative errors. Instead of saying first respondent, we say second. we were taken to task all over social media. Oh, you've made a mistake. You people who say somebody has made a mistake, these type of mistakes in legal parlance are things that the court has even made provision in the law for you to be able to go and amend. So it accepts that you can make these mistakes, and there are ways to go about it. So we held up our hands. Sorry, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
People were upset. Should we not be upset even more when you have a constitutional requirement to give out figures following a set procedure, and you get it wrong? And even worse, you try to correct it and you get the correction wrong? Then we should be hanging ourselves because of that. Forget upset. If this is making you upset, why aren't you livid about what has happened with the EC's declaration? So we welcome the criticism that says you shouldn't have got it wrong. But we ask all those who are criticizing us to join us to critique the EC for what it has done and the confusion it has created. And even to add insult to injury, we are now being told by McMenu of the MPP that they are also saying they don't accept the figures that were given by the EC for Mahama. So it means that we all agree that the EC has serious problems. Because that is our case, that the declaration is fraught with difficulty. So if the MPP campaign manager, McMenu, is saying that this is the situation, all well and good. After all, he was at the declaration. He spoke to cameras after the declaration, if I remember right. So now he knows that there's a flaw. Why isn't he jumping up and down and saying that they will be misled? So I'm clear in my mind that the case is not as simplistic on the face of it as it seems. There are serious errors. There are serious errors in the figures. The way we need to correct and look at things is different. And you see, if you even make an error by saying, I didn't add this figure, I didn't add that figure, I didn't get this information. If you tell me that I had 20 votes, and you tell me that I didn't add certain factors, I'm not adding it. The worst thing that can happen to me is I'll still be at 20 votes. Because if you don't add somebody's votes from a particular place, what will happen is my votes, even if I only had 2 votes, it will move from 20 to 22. How does my vote, after you have done extra additions, move from 20 to 15? What has happened to those 5 votes? Please, let's get to court.
All right, now we will definitely get to court, but we want to have a better understanding of the issues.
Of course.
Yes, and so what we are, earlier you made a point about, okay, let me ask this. From all the figures you have collated as a party, did you win the elections?
No, we didn't go down that particular road because, one, people are not, should be aware that when you have to file a case in 21 days, if you check 2012, the MPP had to come back later and even amend their petition. And right through, the pink sheets became so much of a problem that they had to bring in KPMG. We were alive to that fact. When we were doing all the things, you have to then decide, is the court going to annul this number of votes for overvoting? Are they going to annul this number of votes for vote padding? Are they going to, and you and I don't know whether they will take this out or take that. Depending on which permutation you use, we become the winner. So there are situations which you can put which make us the winner. But you cannot just go out and do that for the benefit of making people out there think, oh, I've won or I haven't won. Because you're going to court. You must be serious about what you're doing. And then you have the restriction of 42 days. So you put your best foot forward and decide what is the best case for me to put forward. So yes, there are scenarios that if you take out whole chunks of votes, as the MPP did in 2012, John Mahama will come out a winner. If you go down the road of saying, all these votes should be expunged because of this, all these votes should be expunged because of that, of overvoting, of padding, of lack of clarity on the face of the document, yes, John Mahama becomes the winner. But the court is not going to just expunge all these things you are saying. In any event, there's been a previous ruling. So you take some guidance But I also say that the previous ruling, when it was done, one of the things that was said in that court was that there must also be, after the event, serious review of processes and procedures by the EC so that these things are not seen to happen again. And I always give the example of something that happened to me when I was young. I went into the fridge and I wanted to drink water. And my mom had always said, when you want to drink water, get a glass, pour the water into the glass, and put the bottle back in the fridge. Too known, Alex. I wanted to drink, so I opened the bottle and I started drinking straight from the bottle. My mom came and caught me drinking from the bottle. She said, "Hey, what did I tell you?" I said, "Oh, sorry, Mom." I went and got my glass, I put down. About a week later, same old problem. I'm going and play football, I'm tired. I came, I opened the fridge, took the bottle. The next thing I saw was the slipper had hit my head. Bah! I had not created a different offense from the one I had created. But the punishment was different. The first one, I got a warning. The second one, a slipper hit my head. So the fact that you can sit back and say, oh, in the previous ruling, overvoting was not taken out, does not mean that when you have been warned to go and deal with it properly, you haven't dealt with it, does not mean that a new court cannot say that this time we'll take it out to teach everybody a lesson about. So you weigh those options when you are going into court as to how you're going to deal with the pink sheets, what can come out. But it still is a judicial decision that has to be made. If you put all your eggs in that basket, you also have to know that means you have to present all those pink sheets one after the other, explain yourself. It creates time consuming, and then the court is going to push you. By the time that 42 days comes, Ghanaians are confused. They say, about actually, why did you go to court? So make it simple. Take a step. There one very interesting leader of ours, unfortunately he's passed on, Kobna J once said, there are many ways to deal with some of our feline friends. So, let me put it in this, there are many ways to kill a cat. So we have looked at all the options that we have. We have decided to go down this route. And in actual fact, senior lawyers, international senior lawyers have looked at our petition and said, this is a serious case.
All right. Now, the issues about pardon.
Yes.
How significant are these?
Well, it goes to illustrate that you cannot trust the figures. This is the point.
But how significant in terms of the numbers?
You see,
the pardon
is clearly a situation that if we add up and it comes to 22, and you have written 25, there are 3 votes that should not be there. So, and it has got nothing to do with the pink sheet. It's got to do with a collation which has been added, which is not correct. Both at the constituency level and the regional level. So, it just goes to show that things were not done properly. And that if you increase that exponentially by all the other infractions that have gone on, you do not necessarily have a credible figure. In any event, the thrust of our matter is that what is the EC relying on? Which figures? At one point, you said you had forgotten a whole constituency. You were bringing it back, etc., etc. I mean, hello. Who gave anybody a deadline? It was self-imposed. Why say 24 hours? The law gives you longer than 24 hours, I think 3 days. The process that was used in the past, even though there have been disagreements, the process saved the electoral commissions of the day because they had sat down constituency by constituency with the representatives. Why did we change the process this time around? It doesn't add up.
It's interesting some, allegations you make in the, petition where you make the point that the EC chairperson is biased towards the NDC.
Against the NDC?
Yes, against the NDC. She has some kind of prejudice against the NDC. She resents the NDC, and she has a personal dislike for the NDC. Where are these emanating from?
The EC chair had a previous life. And we dealt with the EC chair before she became EC chair. And we believe that the way in which she has dealt with IPAC, which was a body that has helped this country to develop and move forward with its electoral processes, is potentially a basis for that type of a statement. So when you look across the whole spectrum, coupled with her her inability to chastise her own fellow commissioners who go around saying things like the NDC is a threat to Ghana's democracy. If you don't chastise somebody for that, or even and in any reasonable democratic country, anybody who made that type of statement would immediately have to resign or be removed because you cease to now be a referee. Only in Ghana.
Now, the 42 days we are working with, the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You think that time would give you enough room to make your case at the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Regardless of how simplified you have made the case and how technical it is.
We are going to try, and I know the court is going to push us to give us very tight deadlines. If we go by it by a short space of time, whatever, the world will not come to an end. But the net effect of what they are telling you is you've got to finish your case quickly. And these are the parameters. And they will give a proper timetable for cross-examining how many witnesses, why do you need those many. The case management process is going to be very stringent. And that is, once that is done, then we know whether we fall within the parameters or not.
You have 5 witnesses you say you'll call?
Yes.
Who are these witnesses?
That is not a matter for me to go into now. When we get to court, we'll give that information.
All right. Now, let's come to your confidence in the process you're going to subject yourself to.
Yes.
In terms of the judiciary.
Yeah.
Because I've heard some comments on social media where some people have made the point that, look, the courts have been, what's the name? What's the word? It's been filled with people who are appointed by the president's administration, and so justice may not come to you. What's your take on that?
From where I sit, look, why do you think that in the appeal court you normally have 3 judges sitting? And then in the Supreme Court you have 7, 9. And you have decisions where it's 5-4, 4-3. In the Court of Appeal, 2-1. You have decisions made in the High Court, which are then changed in the Court of Appeal, which are then changed again in the Supreme Court. What it means is that the fact that somebody is a judge does not mean he always gets it right. You understand? Okay. So you take something to the Circuit Court or High Court, you're not happy, you go to Court of Appeal, it's changed, 3 people have changed it, it goes to Supreme Court, they look at it totally differently, they change it. And then there's a Supreme Court decision, even in the Chachuka case, where even it was changed, they added another 2 judges, and then went and made a review of the Supreme Court decision, and it was changed. It's a question of perception. If you make decisions or go about a process which is not the norm, you create problems for yourself, no one else. Doesn't mean you cannot do it. But if you do things which you don't normally do, so if you remember the Supreme Court in the Chachu case, impaneled 2 extra judges. One of them was due for retirement. So they called the case for 1 day for him to adjourn it, which means that he could still be impaneled because his date for retirement for the next proper hearing would have expired. So they call him in to sit on the case and adjourn it beyond a day by a day or 2. And then it means that I was sitting on the case before I retired. When the review was made, it was based on that within, after the African courts and the African Union had made comments about what had happened in that scenario. You remember that we went for a Constitutional Review Committee, and one of the things the Constitutional Review Committee said was, for games not to be played, and for people to have confidence, there shouldn't be more than 15 Supreme Court judges. Nana Addo has now been able to appoint 18, 3 more than the 15. That is the recommendation. It's not law. So he hasn't breached the law, but there's a recommendation. So it should come into law at some point, but let us start doing right things. But because it's not law, he appoints 3 more, making 18. So immediately, it begins to raise some perception, and you cannot run away from the perception. But we have confidence in the courts insofar as we know that no decision is sacrosanct. And the reason you have a number of judges is that it is accepted that everybody has a different view. When we went to court in 2012, it was a 5-4 decision. It wasn't unanimous. So some of those judges even sat in that case. So it would be interesting from a legal point of view, I'm a lawyer, to read the judgments when this case has gone through as to. The other aspect of it is that we are running our case very different from 2012 because of the time constraint predominantly and the manner in which the EC has actually behaved, which is quite blatant in terms of process and procedure. So they are not necessarily comparable, even though people are trying to compare necessarily what happened in 2012 with this thing. The timelines and the nature of the cases mean that you are looking at them from two different perspectives. So if we didn't have confidence that when all is said and done, we could not obtain justice, we wouldn't have gone.
Could it not be a matter of rather, having no option?
No, we have options. Why?
Apart from going to the court, what are the options?
Why? You can decide to do demonstrations for 4 years. The demonstrations are legal.
But that would not bring justice that you seek in terms of what the former president said, in terms of removal of doubt, in terms of bringing institutions to account.
Clarity. Yes, but you are saying, the question, don't mix your questions. The question you are asking me is not in relation to what the president said. The question you're asking me is, do we have confidence in the court?
Exactly.
And I'm saying if we didn't, we wouldn't go. We have the belief that the court is going to give, each judge will give a decision based on what we have put forward. We believe in that, that is why we have decided to go to court. We believe that justice will be done. We believe that the whole international community can read. They will take the judgment and read it. We believe that people will make mistakes, but we hope that when it's a collective of 9, the mistakes will not be so much in many that it cannot be rectified. So do we believe that going to court is a remedy that will give us the release we are seeking for? Yes, we do. It is so blatant and so clear that we cannot see, we believe, we are not prejudging, that you are not allowed to do. But we believe that we put forward a very strong case which can give us the reliefs that we required, and that the Supreme Court, made up of all the different judges with all the different views, will still come to agree with that at some point. That is our belief. If you can only critique it after the judgment comes out.
But that perception about a supposed bias,
yes,
how widespread is it in the NDC?
I haven't done a survey, so I can't. All I know is that there are people with those concerns, and it's a real concern for some people. But I'm a practicing lawyer. I know that there are difficulties with court decisions. I know that there are difficulties with some of the reasonings. The reason why court is difficult sometimes is it is not a cheap option. So even when you want to remedy something, there's a problem. Some of the decisions of the court have to be looked at closely. So there's a time limit for the presidential, but there does not appear to have been a time limit for parliamentary. I know that they have asked for it to be expedited, but what does that in itself mean? Whereas they've restricted the time to ensure that we get answers quickly in presidential, has the court taken steps to also do the same for the parliamentary? And they may have. If I do, I stand to be corrected. But you don't hear anybody talking of time limits for the parliamentary hearings. And those are very interesting. There are a number of reforms that, as a country, we need to get involved in. And now I'm talking now jurisprudentially in terms of, for one, we have to resolve issues of this nature as quickly as possible. So we shouldn't just be putting time limits on presidential. We should be putting time limits on parliamentary. It also means that the law should make sure that these presidential parliamentary issues are settled within 6 months. And that law which says you cannot change the speaker except for 2/3 should be amended to say that once all the parliamentary issues are dealt with, the whole issue of the speaker will be looked at 6 months after the swearing in of a president. Why? Because if they listen to all those cases within 6 months, and it is clear that one party has now got the majority as opposed to the other, then you still have the ability to change the speaker. Because all these risk and problems you're having is to ensure that on one day, there's not a right number or whatever. If you made those type of amendments, whether you drag the case or whatever, you took court or whatever, once the court was determined to hear the cases and resolve them within a certain time frame, and there was a need, the power to still amend it on a simple majority in terms of the speaker within 6 months of the swearing of a president, all this would just fall away. By the time we got to say July, everybody would know who has a majority and who has all the 275 constituencies will be represented. And then it becomes a paper exercise and they say you choose speaker or you choose speaker. Matter would have closed. But because we've made it difficult to change a speaker after the initial declaration, we have these problems. Also, if I may add, we don't give ourselves enough time, possibly for runoffs. We don't give ourselves enough time, possibly for administrative issues to be dealt with. We tried it under our parliament where we wanted to move the date from November, the date of election, from the 7th of December to the 7th of November. It didn't work. And there are good reasons for that. One of which is that it affects the farming community and the fishing community. They are out working. And so to get them to actually come and vote can be a problem for some constituencies. So what we should do now is to consider swearing in the president on the 7th of February. Don't go back. Come forward. So that from the 7th of December election to the 7th of February, like they have in the States, some of these little things are cleared. And people have a better idea of where we are. There's no rush. You still keep the same tight deadline time limits, but it gives you time to exhale, especially when there's going to be a change of government from one party to another. So there are certain reforms that we will learn from this election. So allow us, people should understand that when John Mahama says he's a complete patriot, when he's lost his handed over, he declared even before the EC announced. He was clear, I've lost this election, I've lost. But when there's lack of clarity, lack of issues and problems, and we need to know where we are, for the sake of our country, for potential reforms, and for making sure that the will of the people is actually met, it is important that we go through this process.
All right. If you just join us, I'm here with Mr. Segbefia, and we are speaking about the petition that the NDC has sent to the Supreme Court, Mr. Mahama for that matter. So I think I'll do a video on more about media. So I'll try my best to summarize the entire conversation we have had so far. But there are some areas I would want for us to go to, but I'll come back to you in a bit. And to Mr. Segbefia, Edin Komano Pay. Now your phone line is now 020-22-22067. And it's a comment be an opesa ubisa and pay or suggestion be an answer question be a but your fire WhatsApp line 020-22-22067. Never saw comments in a brain. I'll ask on your behalf so they will question a brain. But many nations are making command of business owner and you no NDC party in emu at saying emu adwana say eja edasuje no so eja ginem amanfo no upbeat because of elections no mokwa no asania enomasi kwa no eno bi enye clear nti no womo upbeat about elections na sania esikwa no na womo de womo arehyɛ mu say elections no sania message mensa declare elections na enye sa na akro no nti eno no womo etu na mo a womo adi asem na akoda Supreme Court no and ambisa ne say ansa na womo di asem na ko Supreme Court no na flag bearer of the NDC adi abetu dwa through a statement or na ne caption here standing on principle na me bisa ne say na bia no issues and all case removal of doubt institutions was say hold you accountable and justice for the 7 dead people no and also who say some the same and also I need a idea I was say yɛde ani edi akyire because yɛntimi nkoto aba na nipa 7 ɛnhwere wɔ mo ɛnkwa na yɛnka yɛnsa ɛmfa ntomu sɛ wo bibie ɛnsi institutions a wɔn nso yɛde tumi ama wɔn no ɛwɔ sɛ yɛ make sure wɔn yɛ wɔn adwuma a obia etiri mu ɛtene no nti saa nsɛm sɛ ɔpanyin ne ka ne deɛ ɛnoa na yɛn bi sɛ yɛn ho sɛ adentina member of parliament betimi atena se no aka nsɛm a ɛnhu na enso yɛnte se yɛsi police for invite no adenti ne ɛwɔ man mu na member of parliament etimi kɔ polling station no otimi ɛkɔtutuo na till date yɛnte ho asɛm na emom ɛyɛ minority members of parliament yɛ madwene se o wɔn ade petition ɛkɔ ɛyɛ the electoral commissioner na afei no wɔn kodu a police force ya stop yɔm na bibia ha ne sɛ ɛnyɛ stop yɔm no saa mere police force sisi ade wɔn akɔgye ayi court order 20 members of parliament wɔn march that day no wɔn ade wɔn ɛkɔ court no obisa sɛ adenti na wɔn maka na wɔn yɛ MPP for na wɔn keka nsɛm no wɔn de police for nto wɔn nsan frɛ wɔn anase yɛn for wɔn kɔ court ayɛ sɛ wɔn anga na mu no ayɛ sɛ ebumo yɛ a wɔn afa wɔn ho adi ebumo yɛ de a yɛde mbra no yɛde bɛdi wɔn enti wɔn as NDC for no deɛ ɛyɛ akwa sɛ mbra no yɛ mbra mienu deɛ de di NDC for ɛna ɛwɔ deɛ de di MPP for enti ɛna no wɔ kyerɛkyerɛ mu na bibisa ne sɛ oh na some members of parliament nso wɔn mu nim mbra no sɛ ɛsɛ nkɔmɔ kɔ hɔ no so omo police for mani answer no wakọ say sami de basa na wo kan members of parliament ayeni mu omo omo ankasa so omo ni mu mra no so omo de krata ekọ eye EC officer e de ba de e na ye bone wo ho omo ntimi emfa krata na emfa nkọ ho yeni mu omo yeni ma bi omo wo enti emra mu no e de be mra na omo ato enti police for no gina womo na womo ka chom so omo ye MPs no enti police for no ntimi mo omo kwan na na bibi say enye no kwampo nso na hia mo say members of parliament are motion rather my no mo na wo se mo hu ni say whether it is spontaneous whether say a yade mada adwene ho no mo be kwa mo police for amane ansa na makọ because mo de mo ni mo mra no no so same o ka ne sa me no nya adwene because yen no members of parliament obi ani mo obi ani so mo nkotutuo o mo nkotobo o mo nkoyisikan and why should they have to go through the things they are going through and ye didi hu nkoma ye kopie mu e wo hohoi the course hohoi one tiasie say anase any semanyuko ne tiasie say adenti na hohoi ho no sisi aye kasa no hohoi ye koto aba no na wo mo voter regime mu na adenti na mre so ye to aba no na hohoi fo de wo mo to aba no ne saafo no lolobi ni wo mo maka ne de ye se mo mo nto aba isi katere say wo mo be new constituency wo mo de be adwuma constituency na wo hefa enti adenti na say constituency new constituency maya old one yenjina and also amfa to aba the right of the people in those communities no ye free honum enti won tiase say asem we say kwampo no state attorney say wo mo de mo aba bejimu because I clear say emra no ye buso and you moving on ye ba petition na nka so na me say petition e kwa na mo gina so and I say some enti wo enye wa asefem say easy ebe ye announcement we declare na de danko Akufo-Addo say wono na ye omampani e o ma we say mu na ekowi ase wono abeda ne ho no ho ebe tro krata anye say bia krata na signature e sha ase o dabi wo de ato ne social media say oh mistake o ye no wa rectify enti no I was say Ghana for nyina hu ne say oh some mistake no ma rectify the one that she pronounced no I say how is that possible Asa Ghana for kwampo ya homtie because na ebi mo sere o mo so NDC for ade on petition e Supreme Court no problems bi aba mu wo the first respondent second respondent am wo mu ehu wo mo and should we not be more concerned about easier where declaration of somebody as president elect we ase no fort wo ho na womu anytime sa senior 22 of Korea na there were a lot of months womu betimi that case no they don't have that time that luxury and you know 42 days you know I was so making sure say asem no womu dey fa ba bia simple clear womu everything every case no and you know so ye pese hu nsem no so a ye hu ne say it is based on the fundamental declaration at ECA no na mbisa ne say say ECA declaration na said your gazette ye no eye adwuma o no say na the gazette ye ne the okan no the all gazette the okan no anya the amendment a wo ye no enti yentimi emfa eno enka asem And they taught to us why your bro swa ya baby pia hanum saying this I think do a feed another to hanum say ya where I tough about and I'm the man. I know said there's a lot of things that I left in between, but then I'll try my possible best to get you to follow us as we're having the conversation. But they didn't come on and obey me the thoughts of you so comments at the Abremi media. Your WhatsApp line 02022220067. Any thoughts, any comment be will be obey me at the Abremi. There's been the issue about coverage.
Yes.
Live coverage. Do you envisage that there will be live coverage?
Well, I'm told that you have to make an application for it.
Have you made the application?
We'll be making an application for live coverage. Yes.
Okay. Give us an idea. Do you have an idea the number of justices going to sit on your case? Do you have an idea?
I think it's going to be 9.
You think it's going to be 9?
Yes.
Per the law, are you supposed to be informed about those who are sitting on your case?
Not necessarily, but you get to know eventually. Once the panel is put in place, we will know who's going to be sitting.
You know.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, there's a point I want to raise with you. As much as you raise concerns about data, be it padded, be it over bloated, there is also that responsibility on you as a political party to have ensured that your agents on the ground saw these paddings or over bloatings to ensure that we don't get to where we are today. Is that onus not on you as well as a party in this matter?
You have a certain level of onus, but it doesn't take away because of sometimes the chaotic nature that for me, the ultimate, and they don't fill the form. They are supposed to be allowed to check it before they sign. But when it is obviously patent that there is a problem, you cannot just shift the blame completely on agents. The people who fill the form and the people responsible for the form are the returning officers of the EC. So they get absolved partially up to a point, as we saw in the 2012 case. It's not every issue which will be taken on board and then votes are annulled. That is not the case. However, in light of the fact that it is happening all over again and certain things don't seem to be sinking, the court may take a totally different view. And on top of that, there are some issues that when you've put 100 constituencies down, polling stations down, and you add, and you tell somebody that this is the total, you're hoping that that person has got a calculator and has done his own and he's able, but it doesn't absolve you, the person who has done it, from doing it right. So when it comes to padding, it rests for me with the EC officials. They add and they give the totals. So if they've changed the totals from what it is, sometimes the figures are changed. So the totals are never the problem. But if John Mahama gets 100 and Nana gets 30, but when you go to write it, you give Nana the 100 and give John the 30, the total figure doesn't change, but the effect is different.
Yeah, but that's where your officers come in. Because now I'll bring you back to the initial scenario you gave us, where you talked about your childhood and the fact that first you went to drink water, and then your mother cautioned you, and then the second time when you drank the water from the bottle, you were hit. In the same vein, in the 2012 petition, Mr. Afarijan made us understand that the elections is won at the polling stations. The elections can only be manipulated if your agents are not vigilant.
I agree with you entirely.
And so in that respect, there is some responsibility because it's a decentralized system from the national, regional to, how do you call it, the polling stations. Your officers are all there to ensure that these swaps do not happen. So there's an onus on you.
I don't run away from the onus, but I also know that there's reality. What happened to our agents and our people in Techiman? People are dead. Why? It's a simple, let's add the figures.
But that's an exceptional case.
It's not exceptional. It happened a lot. The ballot box was snatched in, what's it called? Sene. Seshiwi also. What's it called? A ballot box, last one in a pickup truck. MPP people get in, pick out or let me say, some people get into the back of the pickup and destroy all the documents, including the pink sheet. So it's not isolated. There are only 275 constituencies. And things have happened. And these are some of the things that happen. So, yes, I agree. That is why in some cases they say, look, if your guy has signed, then let's go with it. But when it comes to padding, and the figures are changed, sometimes after the event, and or our person is not even signed it, but the figure has changed. So for example, in the case of Techiman South, it's going to be very interesting. Why? From day one, we've told everybody these are our pink sheets. We have every single one. We've collected them publicly. We've told everybody these are our pink sheets. And yet the figure that has been given as a total for the MPP guy on our pink sheets is not the same as that of. So where is that other pink sheet coming from? Are we the ones who have created a pink sheet all of a sudden out of the blue? Or has somebody fabricated a pink sheet? Because if the figures don't tally, how do you then gazette a figure? Because to date, the EC has not given us the summary sheet, and they have not posted the summary sheet also on the, so everybody to know what figures they tabulated. Yet they've declared somebody a winner. That is worrying. My brother, it is so worrying that and that's why I'm even glad that some of the media have picked it up. You can't do this. We are in democracy. You are the one who is the referee. You have a document. You have given, there are legal requirements for you to do. Give me a copy. They've shot at our polling station or whatever. Even send it to me by courier. Let me sign that. Look, this is your document. And if not, I've posted it here. Go and take a photograph. None. When you go to the regional officer, I'm not supposed to give it to you. I don't have it. Go back to the returning officer at the polling district. You go back, oh, I don't have it available, or this and that. I've given it to region. They are tossing you left, right, and center. But they were able to gazette. Look, yes, we as the political parties have a duty. If we have signed documents, fine, we have a duty. But at the end of the day, we are not the referees. If you add a document up and it comes to 100, and when you take the figures on the document, signed or not signed, and you add it up, it's 70, you cannot say that because the person signed is 100. Because the figures there don't add up to 100. You don't leave it as 100. You must now go with the 70 because you have added the figures and it doesn't add up. And if you have given somebody votes that the person didn't get, you must rectify it. So the signature doesn't absolve all crime. That is what we all have to understand. If your figures you have given the whole world don't add up, you need to rectify. You cannot leave those as the basis for declaring somebody a winner. Simple, it's not complicated. And so yes, on some polling station issues, our agents have signed, you have to take it. But if I sign for a document which when it's added up is not correct, the EC has no business turning around and say, oh, your people signed, so we'll go with that figure. When you add it up, the figures don't add up. No. It cannot be right. In fact, nobody will uphold it. If not, anybody can put anything and bribe somebody and say sign. And then do his own addition and say that, well, it was signed, so that is it. No. Even if you are going to go around the road of compromising people, at least get your sums right. Your sums should be right. They are not right. Even on your amended version, they are not right. So what are we talking about?
Let me ask two final questions before I activate my phone lines for viewers and listeners to join us. Now, the reliefs you seek, most of them are post the sitting in terms of the declaration that we made by the Supreme Court, right? But there's one where you say, and that's E, an order of injunction restraining the second respondent from holding himself out as president-elect. That one is current and going into the future, because now His Excellency the President is the President-elect per the declaration made by, and so the Supreme Court must let us know per your injunction whether it's being granted or not. Otherwise, he's going to be sworn in. That relief you're seeking, what really does it mean?
Let's leave it for the court, because clearly, if that relief is granted, it has the potential. It can even be looked at separately now and looked at as an application for an injunction. At any time the Supreme Court wants to look at the documents, it can be looked at as an injunction that, if the relief is granted, will then ensure that everything is gone back to ab initio. In other words, if this relief is granted and therefore all this time that he's been saying I'm president-elect, on paper at least, is null and void. So there are many ways of looking at it, and it can amount to an application for a current injunction. That is what the lawyers will say or can say. But let's see how it plays out in court.
But by the time the swearing in is done, this would no longer be applicable. No. Because he's no longer a president-elect, he's a president. And so this relief would obviously amount to nothing then.
But if they rule in favor that the declaration was incorrect, then it means that even at that point, he must understand, or it must be made clear at that point, that not only is he not the president, he's also not the president-elect.
So retrospective?
Yes, it will have retrospective effect. It will put us in the same position as we were before we entered into the election. So it is there as a catch-all type scenario, although it can also be seen as an application for an injunction currently. So the Supreme Court can look at it and say, look, I want to hear this matter now before even the 7th. Do
you think that the Supreme Court would do that? I mean, would they want to hear this matter separately now?
I cannot speak for the Supreme Court.
But why didn't you file this one separately if it's that urgent?
It's a relief that can be looked at in its current form or in the future. So it's got its place there, it's not wrong.
All right, now in ending the conversation, before I activate the phone lines for our viewers and our listeners to join the conversation, does the NDC sincerely believe they are going to have a rerun after the Supreme Court rules, gives its judgment? Do you sincerely believe this your petition would receive a favorable response from the Supreme Court?
I really believe that all those who are walking around thinking that this thing is over and it's going to go away and there's going to be some rubber stamping, from a legal point of view, there are serious legal questions in this document, serious ones. And there are reasons why the petition is drafted the way it is. We are quietly confident that we are going for a rerun. If not, we wouldn't bother with it. I've said this already. It's expensive. It's not straightforward. We don't want people to. We honestly believe that if this is dealt with dispassionately, we honestly believe that 9 judges sitting together will rule in our favor. You can't have a declaration of 100.3% of votes. 0.3% is a huge number of people in an election where over 12, close to 30 million people have voted. So when you take 0.3% of that, it's a huge number of people. How do you get that figure? Where did they come from? So your figures don't add up. So which figures what figures have you got that we trust? What can we trust? So you've made a mistake. Oh, but any permutation you make, Nana win. That's not true. If you change some permutation, Nana doesn't get 50%. Especially on your declaration, the one you made, which stands. The one that is the official, which you gazetted, which is the 9. Nana hasn't won. It's a very serious legal question. It's a very serious legal question. Because you have declared, and it is erroneous. And the person you declared as president, on your figures, NDC hasn't brought in any pink sheets, nothing. On your figures, he never reached. So instead of us going around trying to show pink that if he brought this, it would have brought him down and this and this. Let's deal with what you, by the Constitution and the law, says you should do. And it is flawed. And your attempt to rectify it is flawed and has even not got basis. If you want to even stretch it and say, it's also flawed. And the additions don't add up. The percentages of the people you gave don't add up. Please, we take that, we know that this is a very serious matter. And we are clear in our mind. We have started lacing our boots for rerun. Because we are confident that the Supreme Court may, I'm not making decisions for them, rule in our favor. So it is not some spurious application. No, it is not. It's a serious matter. If you are a lawyer and you look at this and you have to go and defend it, you have to really be thinking, what are my witnesses going to be saying about some of these things?
But how about those who say that this is all, to keep your supporters, to give them some hope that, look.
Why? In 2016, we lost. We could have said, no, it was rigged. We had power. We are going to do like the way they are misbehaving with the parliamentary issues. We could have done a lot of things. If we just said, hey, it's all good. Professor Mills declared. How many times? So has Nana Addo ever declared? He lost in 2008. He never declared. We went to time. He never. 2012, he took us to court for 8 months. And after the court case, he says, I don't agree with the decision, but I'll abide by it. He has never declared.
You mean concede?
Concede.
Okay.
Concede.
Okay.
John Mahama has conceded even before the EC. But this time he says, no, I don't understand what you have done. It doesn't make sense to me.
But there's something that is a bit, trickish about this whole thing.
Why?
There were other observers, right?
Yeah.
There were international observers.
Yeah.
There were local observers.
Yeah.
So all these observers came out to say this was a free, fair election.
No, you see,
The European Union, the African Union, and the rest
I
of them.
think that you are making a big mistake. You see, because you have a situation where you have a situation, I apologize, because you have a situation where you have the conduct of the elections. And let me make it clear that there was an aspect of the conduct of the elections which we should give credit to the EC for. And that is, they made a decision that no polling station should have more than, I think, 700 people on it. Fantastic decision. Why? Because it meant that everybody technically could vote before 5 o'clock. And then you can start collation. And except for areas where it rained, and there were some areas in, I think, the Volta and Brunhafo and some other region where there had been some heavy rain, which delayed the process. So in other words, people were in the queue before 5. So they had to vote right up to 7, 8 in the night because they were already in the queue. But except for those areas, most polling stations, that initial voting was cleared by 5. I give credit where credit is due. That was a plus. What you also have to think about when you do that is that by creating more polling stations, you are more likely also to have more disputes about counting at the polling station. So your time, what you gain by having the polling stations finishing on time, you lose by having the polling stations in terms of challenges at the polling station and then subsequently at the collation center increasing. And even the tabulation at the collation center, whereas before I used to have to tabulate 90 polling stations one by one, I now have to tabulate 120. So that gives me a longer time to also finish my job as the collation officer for the polling station. So you gain time here, but you lose time there. So that was not factored into. You have variables. When you want to make declaration on certain things, the more variables you control, the more likely you are in a position to make certain. But as your variables increase or you're not in total control, you have to be careful what kind of pronouncement you make. Experience statement by an experienced EC official would be, in the past, we have taken up to 3 days to declare results. We are going to do our best to reduce that as much as possible. don't give a timeline. Because you're not in charge of all the variables. You're in charge of some. And you're taking steps to fix them. Now, elections is not only about the voting. The collation becomes an issue. And you see that what happened in the constituency where the ballot box was snatched by the MPP gentleman. Once they got wind that, okay, this was the last ballot box, and they realized that it was in a stronghold of the NDC, they knew they would lose. He snatches the ballot box and runs. He's caught. The MPP chairman of that constituency is a lawyer, goes to court to deal with the case for the gentleman. He pleads guilty, he's sentenced, I think, to about 3 months. And then, based on that, then that same lawyer goes for an injunction against the ballot box. Even though there are 2 seals from the EC on it, and the NDC still is still on it. Takes it to court. We have to wait for the court, and the court says, look, you haven't finished your process, go ahead and finish it. Then we'll make up our mind what application you want to do after that. Why? What was the MPP people, what were they thinking?
All right.
So we are clear in our mind that the infractions that have gone on point to only one direction. But we are quietly confident that this matter will be brought to a satisfactory end. Now,
final question. Considering how limited, time you have, so far I've seen only Mr. Tony Lather's name in most of the documents that are out there. Who are your lawyers?
I think that it wouldn't be fair for me to speak because at the time, I think yesterday or the day before, we got wind that, and I'm not sure whether that is even accurate yet, that each side can only give 3 lawyers officially. Some are even saying 2, but I'm told now it's 3. And there are 3 parties in this case. You have us, you have the EC, and then you have the MPP. So if each can give 3, then you're looking at 9 lawyers total. If they reduce it to 2, you're looking at 6. So it is not for me at this stage to be clear or to give out names at this stage. Let's wait when the orders come out and there's clarity. We will all present our lawyers. And I know that even with the MPP, there are also people who are to-ing and fro-ing to try and get their lawyers. The EC is quite clear because they have their lawyer. Yeah. And then they'll have their, but we wait and see.
Would we have Mr. Chikata on your team?
We are hopeful, but it's not for me to say at this stage.
2 questions. There were 2 questions. One was that, okay, the members of parliament, the 20 of them that the police have, what the person wants to understand is, it means that one more ebano parliamentary nomana around that time, what will happen to them?
No, look, on the face of it, they are going to deal with the parliamentary issue at midnight on Wednesday. That's when on the 6th, Parliament dissolves, and then a new set of people are sworn in. If you went to court today, or tomorrow, or Wednesday, when the court said, okay, I'm giving you bail, 1 million Ghana cedis, and you don't have it, what happens? You'll be remanded in custody till you get the 1 million. So, we are hoping that that is not what will happen. Because people have been known to stay inside for 2 or 3 days just sorting out bail issues. One, for the offense they are talking about, it shouldn't get to that stage or that type of issue. And 2, there are no concerns about bail on the basis that there's no fear that the person will fail to appear. There's no fear that they will commit further offenses of granted bail. There's no fear that will interfere with witnesses or otherwise obstruct the course of justice, which are the 3 grounds, major grounds for refusing bail. So, but in this day and age, when nothing is clear, and games are being played left, right, and center, every little step you take, which doesn't of itself make sense, raises the antenna. Forget that aspect. It can also be a form of intimidation. Because some people, if their constitution is not strong, get worried about the potential for a criminal record, which of itself may or may not affect your position as an MP. So there are serious issues by virtue of this charge sheet they've brought against the leadership. And in fact, it then becomes a quasi-bargaining chip. Could we drop the charges against you, but... So there are many things that go through one's mind when an unnecessary action of this nature is taken. This is just for conjecture and speculation. But it is based on the fact that one cannot even understand why they are even being asked to come to court. It's not in the public interest for this case to proceed at all, or even to have been charged.
All right.
Simple.
Okay.
Even the EC apologized for not being able to take their petition, send it to us. So what is going on?
All right. Just a quick one, 30 seconds. A listener wants to know. So, is there a mock court? What's with the demonstrations that are still ongoing at the ECs?
Our demonstrations are predominantly about the violence that has gone on and the lives that we have lost. It's not necessarily about the petition. That's just an add-on. But the main thrust of our demonstrations is that we want justice for the people who have been killed. We want justice for the people who have been injured. Nobody seems to be bringing anybody to book. Even the one that happened in our Yawasu, if it wasn't because of the media and the noise we made, is it Lord Comey's whatever, would not have been arrested and brought to book.
That's Ablekuma.
Ablekuma apologize.
Yeah.
Did I say I said Ayawasu, sorry.
Yeah.
Ablekuma, sorry. Apologies.
All right.
So you ask yourself, what do you do about those things? We demonstrate. We make it clear that we will not be, the police should come and explain what type of policing methods were adopted. The military should come in. The military is the last line of action, you know that. They shouldn't even be around the scene. So at what point were they coming there and for what purpose?
All right. I'm grateful, sir. And that's Mr. Segbefia, or Kasa, or a lawyer, or Kasa, Emma, NDC, Manyokone, Ebane, a petition, one more Ediako Supreme Court. Meeting Edis.